As with any week, Baylor's Dave Aranda and TCU's Sonny Dykes answered questions about the upcoming matchups for their teams. This Saturday, the TCU Horned Frogs and Baylor Bears are playing in Fort Worth in the rivalry. So let's dive into what exactly they said about the defensive woes, the great QBs, and the injuries, and more in this matchup. First up, how important is the rivalry to these two programs?
Yeah, it is. It's a big recruiting rivalry. We have a bunch of former players that this means a lot to. Our guys that are on our team now remember last year. We got a fair amount of guys that remember a couple of years ago when it was a field goal the other way. And so a lot of really tight games, competitive games. It's tough to play there. They're fired up for this one.
Coach Dykes was also asked specifically about how this game is not a staple of rivalry week, the final weekend of the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought you want to play your rivalry games at the end of the year if you can make it work. I like the fact that it's protected. I think it's important. I think it's important to both institutions. I think partly because of the history of the institutions, it makes sense. You want to play those games, and they're important to fans, and they're important to donors, and they're important to everybody, and they're important to our players. Our guys are going to know a lot of the Baylor players and going to have competed against them or played with them on teams, and so it's always going to mean a little bit more when you're familiar with somebody. It seems like that those old rivalry games were played at the end of the year and were always big games, and I thought, again, it just added a little something to it. But yeah, in a perfect world, I think we would play the last game of the season.
But what about the emotion of a rivalry with the history that Baylor and TCU have, especially with walk-off field goals for both sides in recent years?
I think it's good to have. I think if it's always kind of underneath the surface of just real kind of focus and intensity and work and everything else, I think it's good. When it's kind of boiling underneath the surface, it's a good feeling because you know it's there, you know it's pushing people. I very much feel that way, and I'm sure over there they feel the same way. So this is a big one coming up.
Now, Baylor's coming off of their first bye week of the season, and the Bears were pretty beat up and showed lots of weak points that the staff had to try and close up with the off week.
We did a lot of self-scout, and so we had our defensive staff do it for our offense and vice versa. And our special teams kind of assistants did for special teams, and spent the majority of the week on that. Saying, here, these are the tells that we're giving up. Here's all the weaknesses. Here's the strengths. All right, here's some possible places to go, kind of what you've shown on tape. Right, here's a way to kind of complement that look or to remedy the problem, So a lot of time on that. And then the drill work last week corresponded with that. And so the majority of last week was all about us. So transitioning now to this week, it's kind of, hey, this is how it fits into what they do. This is where we can live in this area or in this phase of the game.
Aranda added that a specific area that the self-scout should help with is exotic offensive looks by opponents.
Yeah, we're getting a bunch of just irregular formations and motions and kind of things that fit kind of outside the box. I think you'll think Oklahoma State, but there's just different versions of that. TCU's been in the past a team that can very much do that. Up to this point this year, they haven't done that. We're fully expecting for them to do that versus us. And so to kind of have that knowledge and then to work on it and spend the time on it gives you the best chance come Saturday morning.
After their first bye week last season, the Bears went on a tear through the Big 12, going 6-0 to finish the regular season. Can the Bears do something like that again this year?
What's similar is that the guys are hungry. I thought, last year was kind of us against the world. It's kind of maybe that way still, but I think it's guys are hungry. Guys want to improve. They're looking for ways. They want to be coached. They want more. They want better. And so when it's like that, it kind of drives you as a coach to give it to them.
Shifting gears, let's listen to Sonny Dykes look back at last week for the Frogs. Specifically, what did he take away from their loss to Kansas State?
The thing that was disappointing for me was, the 21 points basically that we gave them offensively, the two defensive touchdowns and then the interception deep in our own end, kept us from really being in the ball game. That took us out of the ball game and took away our ability to turn it into a competitive football game. Eric McAllister did a great job down the stretch of making some plays, and Josh did a good job of kind of battling his way out of it. But by that time, I think it was too little too late. So, what we need to do is we need to find a way to get these games into the second half, just like we did against Colorado, without making, catastrophic mistakes and turning the ball over. And then at that point, let our guys go win the game. And I think we did it against a good SMU team. We did it against a good Colorado team. And we failed to do it against Arizona State. And we failed to do it against Kansas State. And so we've got to get that part of it fixed.
Turnovers, as always, will be key on Saturday, with Baylor only forcing one per game through the first half of the season. Beyond that, what challenges will the TCU offense pose for the Baylor defense?
They're explosive on offense. When they don't turn the ball over, they are really effective at making explosive plays. And, they've got receivers that can make contested catches. They've got receivers that can catch the ball, make a guy miss, and go the distance. And quarterback is really calm and poised. He can beat you with his feet. I think the O-line's improving. I think the running backs, they've got a committee over there, but they're all very good players.
And a needless segue to Dykes.
Yeah, we're going to have to run the ball. I mean, it's going to be a good matchup. You know what I mean? And they're going to be focused on stopping the run because they think, I'm sure they know that there's an emphasis for us to try to continue to run the football and be more efficient running the football. And as I said, we took a step in the right direction the other night. It's not anywhere close to where it needs to be, but I think we're headed there. So, we just we got to continue to do it. And it should be a big challenge. I mean, that's the line of scrimmage when they have the ball and when we have the ball is going to be very, very important. And to me, going to determine who wins the game.
Every week, the trenches are emphasized by the coaches, but I feel the need to point out here that TCU is not great at establishing the run to take pressure off of their passing game. Like, even slightly worse at that than Baylor is. Mix that with Josh Hoover's great ability to get the ball out fast when blitzed, and the Baylor defensive line will need to stop the run and create pressure with just the front four to really hamper the TCU offense significantly. As for the TCU defense.
And I think defensively, they do a lot. They pressure you. There's a game plan of the week that they got, and it's going to be a challenge for us to run the ball versus all the movement that they got.
Again, straight back to Dykes for his thoughts on the Baylor running game.
Yeah. I think one of the things that Baylor's done a really good job of is running the football. I mean, they're very, very balanced in what they want to do. They've got two strong physical running backs. I think their offensive line has a lot of experience, and you looked at the game last year, it kind of boiled down to their ability to run the ball down the stretch. And they strung a drive together at the end of the game last year to beat us. And to me, that was the difference in the game, was their ability to run it and our inability to do it and our inability to get it stopped. And so that's going to be big for us Saturday. That's the thing that good offenses do, is they test you both, you have to stop both running the ball and throwing the football, and so that's going to be a big test for us. And, to me, the most physical team and the team that wins the battle up front is probably the team that's going to win on Saturday, and the one that limits the turnovers and wins that battle is going to win.
Now let's get to some of the fun topics. Skill players, and particularly quarterbacks. Before we look at two of the highest performing QBs in the nation, does Sonny Dykes think that the Baylor receiving corps is the most talented group that the Frogs have faced this season?
I think so. I think when you look at their skill players, yes. I think just from a depth standpoint, I don't think there's any question about it. I mean, I just think I really like their tight end. They've got size and physicality at wide receiver. They've got speed at wide receiver. As I said earlier, the running backs are physical and run tough and they do a good job of grinding the run game out, and then those guys will pop some big plays. And so, I think when you sit down and just look at the overall skill, this is the best offense we played.
Aranda was also asked about his receiving corps and how they went about putting that group together through the transfer portal this offseason.
Yes. At this stage of the game, you choose where to invest in, and we invested pretty heavily in that group, and it's paying off. We tried to find complementary pieces to it. So there's you want to spread the field, and so you want to have the attention of more than one on one of ours. When it got to that point, it was, hey, let's take the best player available, but we wanted someone that is going to demand a double team and is going to demand cloud coverage, is going to demand an extra guy so that we could get all of them on the field at one time and go by the numbers.
So how about the two QBs? Sawyer Robertson and Josh Hoover are number 1 and number 2 in the nation respectively for a bunch of stats. Yards per game, touchdowns, and points responsible for, to name some. Their other numbers are great as well. But can either of these guys start making some real noise in the Heisman race? Sadly, wins seem to weigh heavier with each passing year. And currently both deserve more mentions than they get. But the winning QB on Saturday will have done wonders for their Heisman campaign if the stats are not terrible. Now, as always, the coach opposing Baylor recruited Robertson previously, so let's hear what Dykes had to say about that and the two QBs overall.
Yeah. I think I know Sawyer pretty well. I know his father well. We played sports against each other growing up. His dad grew up in Plainview. We tried to recruit Sawyer here when he left Mississippi State, and so there's a relationship there, and Josh and Sawyer are remarkably similar young men. They're both young people that have a strong faith. They're both young people that have strong families, successful guys, and guys that, as you said, had to do things the right way. And they're to me what college athletics is all about. They kind of had to wait their turn a little bit, and they got an opportunity. And when they got it, they made the most of it. And so, really proud of Sawyer. Like I said, he's just a first-class kid in every sense of the word. Root for him every Saturday, except for this Saturday. And he's a winner, and he's made that program better. And, credit to Dave Aranda and their staff, Jake Spavital, the offensive coordinator. They've done a really good job of developing him. And as you said, he's turned into one of the top quarterbacks, not only in the Big 12, but in college football.
With Robertson leading the nation in yards and touchdowns, can he take the pressure of a Heisman candidacy? Aranda was asked if Sawyer should be in the Heisman conversation, and this was his answer.
I think he's going to continue to win. I think he's going to continue to be in moments where he's going to shine. I think so. Yeah. I think, I don't think there's going to be a moment that's going to be too big for him. And I think this team is going to fight for him, and they're not going to let him down. And I think you put him in a situation where there's a chance to win it, he's going to win it. And so I think it's only going to get bigger. I just don't believe he ever will. Yeah, I think he's special. I think we can't take him for granted. I think his impact on our team and on our players, on our student body here, you can't measure. And I think he's all of that. And the best is yet to come for him too.
Dave was also asked to compare Sawyer Robertson to former LSU great Joe Burrow.
When Joe was your quarterback, you always felt like you were in it. You always felt, hey, give him a chance. I think Joe had really good weapons. We do too. I think those two things. I think Joe's a little bit of a different guy, and everyone loves Joe. And so Sawyer and Joe personality is probably different ends of the spectrum. But in terms of competitor, in terms of being up here all the time, watching tape and putting time in, and in terms of having weapons and being able to get the ball to them and use them the right way, I think those things are right on.
Now let's look at some important stats for the TCU defense. The Frogs are allowing third down conversions at a 44.2% clip, good for 112th in the FBS. They're also allowing fourth down conversions at an astounding 77.8% clip. That's 131st out of 134 teams in the FBS. Now that fourth down number is really just 7 for 9, but that's still not a good track record, especially given how often Baylor likes to go for it on those downs. So what does Sonny Dykes think about how those key downs are going for his defense?
Yeah, that's been the Achilles heel for us. Yeah, that's a good observation. I mean, we've done a good job on first and second down, and historically, that's kind of Andy Avalos' magic has been third down. Where he can dial up some blitzes and get after the quarterback and scheme things up, and that's that's something that I thought in the preseason would be a strength, and it hasn't turned out that way. And there's a variety of reasons why, and obviously it's something that we're trying to get addressed, and I know that we will. Part of it has been we've played some really athletic quarterbacks, and you're a little damned if you do and damned if you don't type of thing against those guys. You bring pressure and you don't fit it up right. All of a sudden you look up and you got a quarterback running 20, 30 yards on third down. Or, you say, okay, we want to play a lot of man coverage and challenge these throws and not make anything easy. Well, then quarterback takes off and you have guys with their back turned to the offense and results in big plays.
Now let's start wrapping this up by looking at some health updates for both teams. First up, Baylor, with guard Omar Abedian, running back Bryson Washington, and safety Carl Williams.
Omar's was back with us doing everything that he's supposed to be doing. Who else did you say? B-Wash doing everything he's supposed to be doing. Did not see Carl. Have to wait and see with him.
And now Sonny Dykes on his kicking situation, with kicker Kyle Lemmerman still out.
We're hoping to. I think in the next couple of weeks, I'm starting to feel better about our kicking situation. I really am. I think we're making progress, and I think we're all gaining confidence. And so, I expect us to kick the ball well. I think we kicked off better this past week than we had. I thought we were much more consistent. It's just about getting some game experience, and I'm optimistic about our kicking.
That shouldn't be much of concern for the Frogs. Honestly, it's not like field goals have played a major role in the biggest moments of this rivalry anyways. Okay, it's time for final words. First up, Sonny Dykes on close games.
You look at the Big 12, that's what these games come down to. You look at, Baylor's games have all come down to, for the most part, to the end of the football game. You look at the way the conference played out over the weekend. Most of the games came down to the last possession of the game. And so many of these games right now are being won by the team that makes the fewest mistakes. And it's a lot different than it used to be, and I think we've talked about it before. Where you used to have 14, 15 possessions in a game, you had to go outscore somebody, and now, the game is basically won by the team that makes the fewest mistakes, and that's got to be us.
And Dave Aranda on focusing on the task at hand before worrying about home attendance and other things.
Yeah, for us, the focus is really this game coming up. And so, there's some players this morning, they were bringing up, watching games and seeing all of it. And I kind of jumped on them, man. Hey, we're on the road. We're playing this team. It's going to take everything we got, right? This is where teams fall off and teams separate. And we're all about separating. I know they're saying the same thing over there. So this is going to take everything we got to be able to go out there and play well. And then we do that, come on back here. We can talk about what you're talking about here.
Enjoy Week 8, everybody. Join Sikkim 365 Premium on a $1 for 1 month trial to read our experts' notes and insights. Know about high school commits, off-season transfers, coaching staff changes, and so much more before the rest. Also, download the Sikkim 365 app on your iPhone today to get instant notifications of breaking news, read up on the latest inside info, easily interact with other Baylor fans on our forums, and get alerts for anything published by your favorite staff members.